Well, I think like most ecologists that I know, we all have the same story. You know, as a kid, I was just drawn to nature, the out of doors. I grew up in a rural area, playing in the woods around my house, and especially a small stream that was near the house where I grew up. And that's what I did all the time as a kid. And I guess some people outgrow that childlike curiosity of nature and animals, and some of us never do, and so that was me. And I've always been drawn to science. I think I don't know, I think everyone's brain works like a scientist, but I just couldn't avoid it. That's just how I view the world, I guess. One project in Texas is aimed at trying to understand the environmental flow needs for two of the rivers in Texas, the Brazos and the Trinity. This has been a big challenge for the state of Texas over the last 15 years or so. As the state's population continues to grow, as our economy grows and thrives, we need more fresh water. And Texas is a state that has limited water supplies, particularly in the central and western region of the state. But during times of drought, even statewide, freshwater supplies are a big challenge for us. So as we appropriate more and more water for human needs, that takes water from the rivers and streams and estuaries. There's only so much fresh water. It's a finite resource. So it's a challenge to figure out, well, what's the proper balance? How much do we need to leave in the rivers and streams and flowing into the estuaries to sustain our native biodiversity, ecological processes that actually benefit humans in many different ways? So the project currently on the Brazos and Trinity is using freshwater fish, specifically several species of minnows, as bioindicators of environmental flow needs of the system. So the idea is that these species, because they're sensitive to certain flow components, can be indicators of the status and the needs of the overall ecosystem. And so this work involves a lot of capture of larval fish and early life stages, because we're interested in how flow variation affects reproduction and recruitment of the young life stages that sustain the population. So that will be directly utilized by the state agencies as they revise environmental flow standards for those rivers. And it'll have general applications worldwide, because many regions of the world don't have the infrastructure for science, the resources to conduct detailed environmental flow studies of the sort that we're doing here in Texas. So in those regions we have to extrapolate general principles, our general understanding about relationships between flow, the discharge in the rivers and streams, to ecological responses, and for example areas in the tropics. So another area, just to give one more example, where we're currently conducting research that's actually related to environmental flows, is in Brazil on the Rio Xingu, which is a major tributary of the Amazon. I'm working with a large team involving collaborators from Brazil and also some colleagues at the Philadelphia Academy of Natural Sciences. And we're looking at, basically we're documenting the biodiversity of the lower Xingu River before the completion of the giant Belo Monte hydroelectric complex on that river. This has been a controversial project in Brazil, on, off, on again, multiple times as it's worked its way through the court system in Brazil, It's scheduled to be completed early next year, and it's surely going to change the flow regime in the lower reaches of this major tributary. This could be particularly impactful because of the high endemism of fishes and other aquatic life forms in that river. By this I mean there are species that occur there that occur nowhere else on Earth. And we're simply trying to document that biodiversity and document as much of the ecology of that aquatic system before it changes, before the completion of that dam. So the applications are pretty direct in this case. We also anticipate that there are a number of undescribed species of fish in that system. My lab, very likely we will not be describing new species, although we have done that in the past in some of our tropical research projects. But some of our collaborators surely will be working on descriptions of new species from that region. And hopefully none of those will be lost from the impacts from the dams. Well, that's a very good question. Well, there are a number of rewards. So first of all, it's just fun to do this kind of work. Personally, I'm just gratified to be able to go to these places, to be outdoors in rivers and streams and estuaries and see all these interesting fish. It's a privilege to be in a profession where we're allowed to do this and actually get paid for a living. But at the same time, if the information that we acquire through our research has direct applications for needs of society here in Texas and abroad, that's incredibly gratifying that we can do something that contributes to improving situations on the ground. And then, you know, it's hugely gratifying to work with students, to train young people to be the next generation of scientists, to carry on this kind of work. That's probably the most gratifying aspect of this profession of all.